Hello everyone, and welcome to our 30 Days of Cloud session on infrastructure in Google Cloud. We'll go ahead and get started in just a second. Thank you to anyone who is tuning in currently and to all of you guys who are watching the stream after it's aired. Will be recorded, will be on YouTube for posterity, and in case you want to go back and rewatch any parts. If we go too fast, go too slow, up to you. You can come on back and watch this. So to get started, I am going to run through a handful of resources that we're going to need. In particular, I'm going to start off with this lab right here that I have pulled up on my screen. So in order to access this lab, this will grant you a free 30-day subscription, not that long, not 30 months, free 30-day subscription to Quick Labs, which means that you won't have to pay for any credits in order to run these labs, which is super, super cool. In order to access this lab, you're going to go to this link here. It is on screen up here, and it should be displayed on screen in the video. What you're going to do is press this button here that says Start Lab. I've already done it, so I'm not going to run it. But the gist is you're going to press this button, Start Lab. Might ask you to verify that you're not a robot, that you're actually a living, breathing human. And you're going to wait until the counter here ticks down past the 40-minute mark. So once it gets down to like 39 minutes, 59 seconds, then you're good to hit End Lab. But in the meantime, go ahead, press that Start Lab button and just let it run in the background. All right, so that is the lab that you will be needing to get your subscription. Moving on to our second handy resource is our cloudcoach.dev site. So we have some really, really great people who scrapped together this website for us, lots of great people over the GDSC community. And this is kind of our home base for our 30 Days of Cloud campaign. So if you haven't registered already, you can register here. Takes you to this quick Google form, just asks you to put in your email, what school you're coming from, what GDSC chapter you're coming from. If you aren't coming from a GDSC chapter, totally fine. There should be another option. And then you can go ahead and click the next button, and there will be a section for you to create your Quick Labs account and share your profile so that we can keep track of how many badges you're earning. If you have already earned badges, if you've been with us since day one, or if this is your second day, totally fine. We are so happy to have you guys here, and we are excited to help you get through this lab today. All right, some other cool features that I will highlight quickly on this site is our leaderboard. So here, give it a second to load. We have a running tally of all of the schools and universities that have been participating in our 30 Days of Cloud campaign. Over here, you can see the schools, how they're ranked, how many students have been participating, and how many total badges each of those schools have earned. So one of the really great things about this campaign is that for each person that earns a lab, that earns a badge from doing these labs, you get funding for your GDSC chapter, which means you can get some swag, which I know that lots of people are into. So over here, we can see how many funds have been unlocked based on the number of badges people have gotten. We've gotten 183 total badges, 331 participants. Super, super great. Take a look at this. Maybe find your school while you're at it. And then we also have our live stream, which I'm not going to click on because you are here currently, or you're watching it later. And then the last thing that I want to highlight from the cloudcoach.dev website is our community space. So if you click on this, it will take you over to Kumo space. I will keep my microphone off to avoid some weird feedback things, but you can join with your microphone, with your camera, and it will take you to one of these three lobbies. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and join. Here's Albert. He will be fielding the questions. If you have any, you can go ahead and say hi. One of the nice things, since my microphone is off, you can't really tell, but this little circle that is around your avatar tells you the space that you're able to hear people in. So you can see as I move further away from Albert, the microphone turns off to indicate that I can't hear him anymore. So it's kind of like actually being in person, navigate around, meet some new people, and then you should also be able to see the stream up in the corner. To orient yourself, there's a map down at the bottom if you need that. All right, lots of information there, but very, very useful. Again, If you missed one of those links, just poke around in the cloudcoach.dev website. Very intuitive, community space, leaderboard, home, about us, live stream, register, all there. All the content you need is there. Okay, great. And then the next thing that I want to go through really quickly is the Hey Student website. So in order to access the lab that we will be doing today, you'll need to navigate over to this go.quicklabs.com/hey-student website. I'll also be displaying it on the screen for your convenience. I will be jumping into this in just a second, but I just want to make sure that you guys who are watching, you have this pulled up and you have it ready once your subscription is all set. So since I haven't actually run this lab, I am going to wait maybe just a little bit longer just to check that the 5-minute counter is up so that any of you guys who haven't accessed your monthly subscription yet can get that before we get started. So wait a little bit. Feel free to kind of poke around here, check some things out. This will kind of give you a sense of the layout of how these quick labs work. So over here, you've got your table of contents, good for easy accessing. If you need to jump around over here, it'll tell you your timer. The reason that we have these timers, it doesn't make too much sense exactly for this lab since it's just an introduction. And it kind of walks you through this. But the reason that we have this timer over here is because these quick labs actually allocate some of the resources on Google Cloud servers in order for you to be able to run these things that we are working through in the labs. So it's not just like a simulation, you are actually using the resources that Google has in order to learn these things, in order to mess around with these different cloud technologies, which is super, super great because now you have an actual experience. Quick plug for that. Okay, I think we should be pretty good on time. One last thing that I will point out is once that lab has ticked below the 40-minute mark, you are good to go ahead and hit end lab. It'll ask you to rate the lab. You can go ahead and do that. And then once that's done, you should see down here, when you click on your profile, it says monthly subscription. If you are not getting a little green tab, I don't know what you would call it, that says monthly subscription, then you can try one of two things. Either just refresh your page, simple refresh, or try signing out and signing back in. That usually fixes the issue. If you have an issue that's persisting that you can't quite figure out, feel free to drop a comment in the chat or go to Kumo Space. Albert will be there. He can help you out. Also, these labs are self-paced. So if you are ever doing this on your own, or if you're doing this later with the recording, something you can do is come to this little question mark icon and go to chat support. The people helping out with the chat support are super, super nice, always very helpful, would highly recommend. Great resource there. Okay, I think that should just about be enough time for the 40-minute mark to be hit on this timer. So in that case, we're going to go back to this Hey Student tab. Again, that's go.quicklabs.com/hey-student, and it should take you to this page. If it brings up a prompt that, actually no, I think that'll come a little later. Okay, just kidding. So once you're on this page, we're going to scroll on down to this section here. Today, we're working on track 2, infrastructure and Google Cloud. We're going to click on this enroll button here. And it should take you to a page that asks you to put in a code. You don't have to worry about that. Since you have your monthly subscription, we can just go ahead and press cancel. Perfect. So if this is your first time with us, if this is your first time enrolling in this track, there should be a button. I want to say it should show up here. It might show up a little bit earlier, but there should be a button that says enroll in this course. The way that you'll know that you're enrolled in this course is if you try to click on one of these and there's no hyperlink, then you'll know that you're not enrolled. But if it's blue, you'll know you're enrolled. So we want it to be blue. All right. The lab that we will be working on today is down in the third section here where it says you can't secure the cloud, right? Once you click on that, we're going to scroll all the way down to this one here that says Cloud IAM Quick Start. and this will take us straight to the quick lab that we will be doing today. Awesome, awesome. Okay, so we're not going to run through this video right now, but sometimes they will have these student resources here that you can click on. It will give you a little introduction overview into what the topic of the lab will be, which is helpful in order to contextualize some of what you're going to be delving into. At the moment, we're not going to watch that video, but generally, or I suppose I'll just give you a brief rundown. There's also this overview here. But today in this lab, we're going to be working with Google Cloud's Identity and Access Management Service, which we called IAM for convenience. And essentially, it just lets you manage permissions for your Google Cloud resources, which means that you can tell people, all right, you can do this, you can do that, you're allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do that. So it gives you control over who has access over what. Essentially, the three things that we want to keep track of when we're using Cloud IAM is we want to make sure that everyone has an identity, everyone's got a role, and everyone has a resource. So that might sound a little bit obscure at the moment, but we will see how that's a little bit more concrete once we start messing around with the stuff in this lab. All right, before we click on the Start Lab button, because we do want to make sure that we have enough time, we don't want to run our clock down, because if you do run your clock down and you don't complete the lab, then you don't get credit for it. So before we do that, prerequisites. You don't need to have any actual knowledge into Cloud IAM. This is a quick start, which means it's an introduction, which is super great. But something that we will need for this lab, as it tells us here, is we're going to need a .text or a .html file. So if you have some floating around on your computer, that's great. You just need to have one that you're able to upload during this lab. I have mine right here, down at the bottom. Okay, actually, yeah, it's in my files. Right. Oh, you cannot see that. Okay, I have it in my files. However, if you do not have a .text or a .html file on your computer right now, then if you are on Mac, you can go to your text edit app and you can type something out there. Keep in mind that you will have to change the format so that it's so it saves as a .text file. I am a Mac user, so that is how I know. I am not a Windows user. However, I did do a quick Google search on how to make a text file on a Windows PC. So I will leave the instructions on screen for a few seconds. It doesn't even really have to have that much in it. It just needs to be a file that's a .text or a .html file. So I'll give you a few seconds to get that up. If anyone has any questions on that, again, if I'm going too fast, totally feel free to send a message in the chat or to drop into Kumo Space and ask Albert to help you get caught up if you're falling a little bit behind. Also, do bear in mind that this will be recorded, so if at any point you're confused or if at the end of the lab you find yourself, hey, I want to explore that a little bit more, or hey, that part was a little bit fast, you can always go back to the video and rewatch it. All right, let's head on back to our lab then. Now that we've got our .text or .html file all set up, we're gonna go ahead and press Start Lab. Perfect, so here, asking me to verify that I'm not a robot. Perfect. And then it's going to ask us how we want to pay for this lab. So we have our monthly subscription. We're going to go ahead and press this Use Subscription button here. And once that loads, we see, am I not logged in? I should be logged in. Use subscription. Troubleshooting. It happens. One moment. Let's see. Okay. Let's perhaps try refreshing. Let's click Start Lab. So we're not a robot again, looking for some bridges. All right, e-subscription. It's a little slow sometimes, that's okay. Interesting. All right, we could try, let's try this. Let's try, oh, that's for later. Let's try coming back in here, not a robot. You know what, okay. Motorcycles, fun. Oh, goodness, I missed one. Looks like a car. Oh, no, it's this one. Perfect. So cancel, okay. And then this is the one that we're looking for. Perfect. Let's see if it will let me do it this time. There we go. Okay. Hopefully that little delay on my end gave you guys all enough time to be able to get started. If anyone is also having any issues, sometimes, as you can see, it does get a little buggy. You can try refreshing or try accessing the lab again from that Hey Student. So fingers crossed that everyone is on the same page currently. Now our timer has started. We have our resources allocated here, and we can go ahead and get started with the lab. So what we're going to be doing today in this lab is we're going to be seeing how we can add and remove permissions for different users using Cloud IAM. So again, remember, Cloud IAM allows us to control who does what using our Google Cloud resources. So the first thing that we're going to do is over here, make sure that we've got everything for our Google Cloud lab. We see we're going to be using username 1 and username 2. So these are going to be simulating two different users that have access to our cloud resources. I'm going to be skipping over some of this text here, but feel free to read it on your own time. Again, these are super, super well structured, so they're perfectly amazing to be able to do self-paced. But in the meantime, I'll be guiding you through on this one. So the first thing that we are going to do is we're going to open our Google Cloud Console. So we're going to open this in a new window. And something that I would recommend, hold on, actually, I think I need to, okay, let me do this in a new tab instead. Okay, I'm gonna open this in a new tab, and it's going to ask me to sign in. So we're going to click a different account, and what we're going to do is copy this first username. It's got this nice convenient copy button. We are going to paste it in here, and then we're going to hit next. So I would recommend doing these quick labs in an incognito window so it doesn't log you in automatically to your personal Gmail account, because these usernames are allocated with the lab, and it will speak to the lab and let us know that we are on the right track. So you want to make sure that you're using these ones here that are provided for you. And then once you've pasted in the username, we're going to copy this password right here, and that is going to be the password for our account. We're going to hit next. It's going to ask us if we can accept some permissions. It didn't for me for some reason, but if it asks you, hey, accept all terms and conditions, go ahead and just click yes. Just agree to any of those pop-ups that come up. Totally fine, because these users are only going to be active for the next 40 minutes. So everything's all good on that end. Great. So this is the interface for our Google Cloud Console. We have lots of stuff here, but don't worry, I'll walk you through. Don't get overwhelmed. The lab will also walk you through if you're watching this on your own time. But yes, we have gone ahead and accepted the terms and conditions. Mine was good by default, but if any of you guys need to do that, go ahead and just accept the terms and conditions, select your country, and then continue. All right, now we are going to do the same thing for our second user. So again, open this up, our Google Cloud Console, and this time we are going to copy username 2. So I'm going to go over here, use another account, same drill as before, paste in that username. And it's actually going to be using the same password as the first one, just out of convenience. Perfect. Okay, looks like this time it did ask me to accept some things, which is good. Now you guys can see what it looks like if you were a little confused before. And here we've logged into our second user. So here's my first user, here's my second user, and we are good to go ahead and move on. I will pause for a little bit in case I was going a little fast for anyone. If anyone has any questions, again, feel free to drop them in the chat or to head over to Kumo Space. Albert will be there. All right. So again, asking you to accept and continue those terms and conditions. And now we are at the step, so we should have a username 1 over here, which I have mine here, and username 2's Cloud Console over here. Perfect. All right, so another great thing about these labs, besides them being self-paced, is that they often give you some tips and tricks for errors that people have encountered in the past or for things that might come up during the course of your lab. So here, one of the things that it flags for us is that sometimes when we are trying to run 2 different accounts here, it might log you into the same one. So just double check that these are different. So here we've got 798A65, fun, and then, okay, so see, it looks like here we have logged into the same one. Okay, so in that case, I'm going to log out of one of these. And is this the right one? The F00. Yes, okay, so this is the one I want to be logged into instead. I'm gonna close out of that one. Perfect. So again, this is, there we go. Great, okay. Great, and now we are logged into our separate accounts, which is what we want. So this is username 2 for me, this is username 1, and I am all set. Chances are, if this happened to me, it probably happened to one of you guys watching as well. So hopefully you were able to see how I managed that. Okay, great. So now when we have those 2 Cloud Consoles set up, we want to go back to our username 1, and then we want to go to our navigation menu, the IAM and admin tab, and then the IAM tab. It's also very convenient here. They have these little video clips, these little GIFs, however you say that, depending on who you are, who you ask, that allow you to see what exactly these directions are saying. So first things first, we're going to go to our navigation menu, which is over here. It should be open by default, but if for some reason it's closed, it's just this little hamburger icon up in the upper left corner. You can click on that, scroll on down past the compute section, past the serverless section, and oh, I might have gone too far. 1 second. Yes, I definitely went too far. It's one of the first ones. My apologies. Okay, so it should be around the 5th one down. We're going to go to the IAM and admin, and then all the way up to this IAM tab. Great. And then here we can see all of the users that are on this fake account that we have set up. So this is us. This is username 1, the one that we're currently on. You can see that we have all of these roles that come with their individual permissions, which I will talk about in just 1 second. And then down here, we have our username 2. So username 2 is only a viewer. We got much fewer permissions than we do as username 1. Great. So once we've done this step, we can move on to step 3. It says, click the Add button at the top of the page and explore the project roles. So at this point, we're not actually going to add a project rule, but a lot of the times you'll see in these quick labs, it kind of runs you through, lets you poke around in things a little bit. You can see we've got the basic ones, browser, editor, owner, viewer. We've got all of these ones here that come with their individual ones, but generally we'll see that there's usually some type of variation on admin, viewer, editor, creator, some some kind of variation like that. There's a whole lot of rules that you can filter through. Feel free to do that on your own time, or if you decide to do the lab again. But for now, we're just going to hit this cancel button to make sure we don't mess anything up and come on back to our next step. So here it kind of breaks down some of the different roles. We have a viewer, which only lets us view, as the name implies, editor, which gives us the viewer permissions as well as permissions to modify things. The owner, which I believe our username one had, which this one allows us to manage our roles and permissions. And that's the main purpose of this lab, as we will get to in just a second. And then this one, which is currently in beta, we're not going to touch on this one today, but feel free to look at it, read it over. And then as it confirmed here, as I mentioned earlier, username one is one of the users that has project owner permission. Okay, I've already done this step, but if you haven't already, make sure you press cancel to click out of that tab that we were on once we clicked on the ad. You don't want to mess with any of those settings quite yet. Okay, now we are going to switch back over to our username 2 console. We're going to do the same thing we did on our username 1 console, where we come over here. If this isn't open already, remember you can just click these 3 lines up at the top, go down to the IAM and admin tab, and all the way up to IAM. Perfect. Okay. All right, so let's see. Why is it not showing up here? Are we in the right lab? Looks like we are. Okay, we're going to try refreshing. Interesting. Okay, let's see. Which one are we on here? For some reason, it's not showing up online. Not the ADC. Okay, so we want this one here for me at least. All right, perfect. So if you, for some reason, also had that error where it wasn't showing up automatically, it should show up automatically typically. But if it wasn't, you can go ahead and just do what I did, where you can search for the project that you're currently looking at. And the project that you're currently looking at, you can find it in your username 1 console. It should be up here. Just look for the one that matches. Great. Okay. So we are over here. And again, we can do the same thing. We can examine the rules. But now what we want to see is verification that we are, as username 2, in fact, only a viewer. So remember in username 1, we were able to add. Here, if we try to add, first of all, we see that it's grayed out, which is our first indication that we don't have permission to do that. And if we need extra confirmation, we can hover over it and it tells us, hey, you need permissions for this action. You're only a viewer. You're not allowed to control who has what role and who is able to access what. Great. So that's already one of the big check marks of the things that we set out to do in this lab, right? To see how this cloud IAM, how this cloud IAM works. We have seen just now the different roles, not only on paper, but also, seeing it in practice. And again, that goes back to one of the great reasons that these quick labs are one of my favorites, because it's not just you reading about it, you also get to try things out for yourself. So we can see and mess around with it, see it from both ends, instead of just reading about it on a website. So super great resource. Quick labs, can't praise them enough. Okay. Now that we've seen that, we want to do something a little bit more interesting, right? For now, we've just been peeking around. We're like, okay, this is great. We've noticed that we can add on this one, but we can on this one, but we haven't actually really done too much. We've just kind of been getting some foundations here. Now we're actually going to mess around with some settings. So heading on back to our username 1 console, we are going to do what's called creating a bucket. So we are going to come here, go to our navigation menu. Don't be fooled by this one. This is the IAM navigation menu. We want to come to the main navigation menu, and then it tells us we want to go to cloud storage and then to browser. So this one, we actually will go further down, go past compute, past serverless, and into the storage section. So we're going to go to cloud storage and then to browser and click on that. Perfect. Now what we want to do is create a bucket. So you can come on down here, press this create bucket button, and it will ask you a couple of questions. So the first thing it's going to ask you to do is name your bucket. It needs it to be globally unique. So quick tip for you, these GCP project IDs are globally unique because it's allocating resources from the cloud directly for you. Can't conflict with anyone else's, so it has to be a unique name. So whenever it asks you to pick a unique name, I'd recommend just always copying this project ID and then pasting it right in there. Plus, it's convenient because as you'll read in the lab, it tells you to write down or to remember your bucket name because we will be needing it later. And it's right here. So it's just doubly convenient. All right, great. So once we do that, we also want to make sure that we have it as multi-regional. Should be right there. And then we are all set. Those are all the settings that we want to mess with. We can click create. We'll take a second or two to allocate. Okie dokie. Let me take a second or two. All right. Oh, yes. Okay. My bad. Yes. So it should be right there. Whatever name that you have gone ahead and picked will show up right there. And we have our bucket created. Great. This is where that text file comes in, or that .html file that you either created or you have on your computer is going to come in. So what we want to do is we're going to upload that file. So there should be a blue button here just above the table that we've got. Going to click upload file. Mine is just called 30 Days of Cloud. And we are going to open it. So HTML or text file, and it should show up right here when it's done. All right, and then the next thing, I'll pause a little bit to make sure that you guys are on the same page as me. And then the next thing we are going to do, which it mentions here, is we want to rename it to sample.txt. The way we do that is we're going to click on these three dots down at the end. Depending on how big your screen is, you might have to move things around a little bit or make your screen a little bit bigger. And we are going to go up here to where it says rename. Now we just want to name it sample.txt. Perfect. And I will pause once again, just in case anyone was lagging a little behind. So everyone's all caught up. For those of you guys who have managed to rename it to sample.txt, you can go ahead and click this check my progress button. And it should give you a green check mark to indicate, yes, you've done this correctly. And you can see over here that it's kept track of your progress so far. This one, it depends on what quick lab you do, but usually you will find these scattered a little bit more evenly throughout the lab. I think this might just be, you can see we're halfway through the lab and we've only hit our first checkpoint. And I would attribute that to the fact that this is an introductory lab, so there's a lot of foundational work to build upon. But these will make sure that not only are you participating, not only are you reading through the lab, but you're also participating. So the lab itself is speaking with your Google Cloud consoles, and it's making sure that you are following the steps as you go. Great. Hopefully everyone is all caught up by this point. Again, You can always go back and rewatch the recording if you need to, but for now, I'll go ahead and move on. So we're going to switch on back to our username 2, and we want to double check that we have viewer access, which means we want to be able to see the bucket as it tells us here. In order to do that, we are going to go to our navigation menu, again, up here, scroll on down to the storage section, and then within there to the cloud storage section, and we're going to click on browser. Perfect. And now we can click on here. That'll have the name of whatever you decide to name your bucket as. Mine just has the name of my ID for this lab. And we can see our sample.txt file that we uploaded via username 1. Perfect. All right, so we can poke around in here just a little bit, and we can click on this, see what's going on here. Perfect. We are not the author. There's a lot of information here, so I would highly recommend kind of poking around a little bit if you have time. They also usually have these little tutorials and drop-down menus here that you can click on if you are interested in learning more. And a lot of the times they'll also have these little question mark icons that you can hover over for additional information. Perfect. All right. So we've gone ahead, we've verified that we can upload things and manage content as username 1 as the owners of this project. And we have verified that as the viewer, we are actually able to view the files that have been uploaded. Now we want to pull out the big guns, right? We want to see how we're able to remove people from projects, excuse me. So again, that falls under the role of the owner, which means that we are going to navigate back onto username 1. So we're going to head on back into that IAM section again, because we are managing the access that we have for our project. It is up here, 5th one down from the top. Again, back up to IAM. You guys kind of know the drill by now. And then what we want to do is come over here. This is our student 2, the one that's only the viewer. We're going to click on this, the little pencil icon in case you didn't see me. And then we are going to click delete role. All right, and hit save. And now username 2 is gone. So I've gone ahead and gone through all those steps. And again, it should make these little notes here just to make you aware of some of the things that you might run into throughout these labs. For example, here it says sometimes it can take up to 80 seconds for a change to take effect. But our goal is to be able to see that username 2 has lost access to this project. So we want to make sure that we are in our proper account. So I am in the F00 account. That is in fact my username 2. I would always recommend throughout this lab just kind of checking that you are logged into the right username, because it can get a little funky and it can log you into the wrong one. So you'll think, hey, I shouldn't be able to have access to this because I just removed username 2. But then you'll look and you'll see that you're actually in username 1. So just keep double checking that from time to time. All right, so we will go back into username 2. I'm gonna try refreshing this. Okay, let's try, I think it asks us to go. Okay, yeah, it might still give us a little bit, we might still need a little bit of time to let it load. So we will go ahead and do that now. It's a good time to pause, maybe take a quick stretch. Ask any questions. Again, Albert should be hanging out in Kumo space. Let's verify that we are in the right one again. Yep. In the meantime, I think we should be able to check this. Perfect, okay. So that tells us that we've successfully removed project access. So let's try this. Let's try going to our IAM, come up here, and let's double check that we are in the right account. We are in the right account, which means that it still hasn't finished loading. There we go. Okay. So at a certain point, once those 80 seconds are up, once the change has propagated, we should see that when we're in username 2, we don't have access, right? We've removed through username 1, we've removed username 2 from this project. So now we don't even have viewer access. Now we can't do anything. We don't have sufficient permissions to view this page. Amazing. Great. If you haven't already, go ahead and click that check my progress button. That'll bump us up to 60% completion. You guys are doing fantastic. And we can move on to the next section, which is add storage permissions. So we've just removed someone from the project. Now we've decided, okay, username 2, you can stay. You're back on the team. We're going to add you back using the storage permissions. Okay. So we are going to copy username 2 from over here. Again, very handy to use this little copy button. You can also go ahead and highlight it and then Control-C, Control-V, but it's just more convenient to copy it, in my opinion, at least. Once you have username 2 copied, we're going to head on back to username 1's console and make sure that we are signed into the right one. Looks like I am still signed into username 1, which is great. And then where do we want to go? We want to go to our navigation menu. IAM, admin. We should already be there. And we can click the add button. So remember, we were peeking around in this a little earlier. We saw, hey, cool, we're able to add people. Now we are actually going to add someone. This is username 2. And then the role that we want to select, I believe, is, okay. So we're going to go to Cloud Storage and then Storage Object Viewer. So Cloud Storage, these are in alphabetical order, which is helpful. So a little bit further down, Cloud Game, Cloud Managed Identities. Okay, Cloud Storage right here. Great. And then should be Storage Object Viewer, if I remember correctly. Yes, it is. And now, instead of hitting cancel like we did before, we want to go ahead and press save to ensure that our changes are saved. It is updating the policy. And now we can see username 2 has been re-added to our project as a storage object viewer. So just like last time, we don't just want to be telling you, hey, yeah, if you do this, it'll work, and then not prove to you that it works. So we are going to double check, right? We always want to double check. That means that we are going to head on back to our username 2 console. Again, we want to double check that we are in the right account. Looks like I am Cloud, okay, I'm sorry. So we should still be on the storage page, it tells us. And then we don't have project viewer role as we did before, which means that we can't actually view this. However, we are going to do something new. So next to this search bar up here, there should be a little icon that says Activate Cloud Shell. Go ahead and click on that. And then it'll just bring this little pop-up here. You can press continue. It is free to use through the services that Google provides here. And then it should log us into our terminal here. You can go ahead and close this out. Great. And then, that is the wrong tab, excuse me. Then what we want to do is copy this code here. So don't copy it and then hit enter quite yet, because as you'll see if you read the directions, we need to replace this bit here with the bucket name. So earlier in the lab, remember we created and named our bucket, It told us to give it a unique name, and it told us to keep track of that name. So I recommended that you just use your GCP project ID out of convenience. This is the convenience. Now we're able to just paste it in directly there. So I've copied this. We're going to head on back here. I'm going to paste it, but not hit enter because we need to add our bucket name. Come on back here. I will copy my project ID since that is what I named my bucket. And we are going to paste it right in there. And once you're all set, you can go ahead and hit enter, hit authorize, and then you should get something that looks like this. So as it will tell you in the lab, it should give you an output that looks like what I mentioned. If you have an access denied exception, then just wait a minute, run the command again. It should work that time, but if it doesn't work, then feel free to go ahead and drop something in the chat. And as you can see with this text here, it's telling us, okay, before up here, we weren't actually able to see what was going on in the project. But when we use this command here, we can see that we do actually have access to it. So if you remember, this was the .text file that we uploaded that we renamed, and we can find it here in our Cloud Console. Great. So now we've gone ahead and verified that the change that we made to our policy via username1 actually updated and propagated the way that we wanted it to. And username2 now has permission to access it through the cloud. Great. And we can double check that everything is good and everything should be good. So you can go ahead and click that check mark there, and that will bring us up to 100%. Perfect. Very handy. And actually finished a little bit ahead of schedule. So I will go ahead and pause a little bit, but I will also just plug a few things. So this is the end of the Cloud IAM Quick Start Lab. It does give you a nice little congratulations, a lot of hard work. One thing that you can do if you finish the lab early before the timer is up, which we have, is you can poke around a little bit, right? So you can start seeing, all right, what other roles might I be able to add? What else can I do here? You can also hover over these little question marks if you are wondering, hey, what is this talking about here? What does this simulate? And you can read up on it a little bit. It's very, very comprehensive. Again, I would highly recommend just looking around, seeing what's going on in the back end here. I will not be digging into that too much. Instead, I will just be talking about some next steps and potential things that you can do with just Google Quick Labs in general. Again, if you finish before the timer is up, then you can always just go ahead and look back. If you felt like we were going a little bit too fast, you can scroll back and say, okay, I kind of understood that part. I kind of understood that part. I didn't quite understand that part. Let me delve into it a little bit further. Or you can just try to do it again without the help of the lab. So you can be like, okay, I remember that we had to come down here to the cloud storage part and then to the browser. And then we created a bucket, which in this case will be up here. So it gives you some space to mess around because remember that these Google Cloud resources are provisioned via the lab. So as long as the lab is live, as long as this timer is still counting down, then it's giving you access to those resources. So make use of that if you have time. But otherwise, if you feel content, if you feel like you are all set with the lab, then once you've verified that you've hit that 100% so that you can get credit for completing this lab, you can go ahead and press this End Lab button here. And it does give you this pop-up here. Once you're done, it will deallocate your access to this instance of the cloud, and you won't be able to access this console anymore, neither of these ones, since we have created two during this lab. So really make sure that you are done kind of poking around, that you're really done with this lab. Otherwise, you're going to lose all your work. And also another thing that I will mention, you are able to redo these labs if you feel the need to, if you want to, if you're like, oh, that was a fun one, or oh, I'd like to try it out in a different way, or walk someone else through it perhaps, then you can redo the lab. However, bear in mind that there are quotas to the labs. I think it's somewhere around 6 times that you can do a single lab. So keep that in mind when you are redoing labs. All right. I am good on my end, so I will hit submit. You can rank it 1 star, 5 stars, as much as you want, and you can also add comments. From what I've heard, the folks at Google are pretty good about reading these comments. So if you have any feedback, positive or negative, either, hey, this was really well paced, I learned a lot from it, it was really good, would highly recommend, or hey, this part was really unclear, I couldn't find this bit, or this part wasn't working for me and I tried this, this, and this, and it still didn't work, go ahead and throw that in there. As I will show down at the bottom, you can also go ahead and leave no comments, but as I'll show down here, they do update these labs and they do take into account the feedback that they receive through these labs. So as you can see, the last time that they updated it was roughly 2-ish months ago, month and a half-ish. So, if you run into any problems, make sure you write those down there. All right, next steps. You have finished this lab. However, 30 Days of Cloud is still ongoing. We are in the final week. If you have been here from the first day, thank you. If you have been here, if this is your first day, thank you as well. But regardless, be sure to continue completing the labs, continue completing the quests, which are just a series of labs, in order to earn badges. Again, quick plug, the more badges that your chapter earns, the more funds they receive, which means more swag, which I know everyone is interested in. So make sure that you continue. Again, keep in mind, in addition to just getting swag, this is an investment in yourself, right? You earn these badges, you are learning these new concepts, and you can put them on your resume or you can put them on your LinkedIn. And I've heard of people having gotten interviews or recruited from people who were looking at their Google Cloud badges. So that is it's a good thing to have in your back pocket just for your knowledge sake and also perhaps for landing that internship you've been looking for. All right. And it does mention a couple extra next steps, but most important ones for us, keep on working on those badges, keep on working on those labs. All right. So really quickly, before I close us out, I would like to do a quick plug. So we are GDSC. If you are coming from a GDSC, your own GDSC chapter, that's fantastic. If you are new to GDSCs, aren't quite sure what GDSCs are about, then I would recommend you go over to the gdsc.community.dev website. You can learn all about us. You can see what club chapters are in your area, and you can join one of them. So here is the page for Princeton University's GDSC. You can also access our LinkedIn. We are on LinkedIn over at Google Developer Student Club, Princeton University. And you can also access our Instagram. We are at GDSC_Princeton. So go ahead and give us a follow. And if you are not involved with the GDSC, go ahead and join one. Or if there's not one on your campus, then look into starting one. We are always welcoming new GDSCs, new people who are passionate about helping us to bridge the gap between practice and theory. All right. I think that about wraps us up. Again, we'll point us back to the leaderboard. Keep earning those badges. And be sure to tune in tomorrow, same time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, to hear the lovely folks at the University of Saskatchewan to talk about and run through some labs on networking and security in Google Cloud. If anyone has any questions, we'll stick around a little bit, and I think Kumo Space should still be open. But in the meantime, keep earning those badges. Thank you for showing up and walking through this lab with us. And, keep doing you, keep learning. All right, we hope to see some of these numbers go up on the leaderboard too. All right, guys, thanks so much for joining. We'll see you next time. All right, I am looking through some of these comments. Does anyone have any comments before we go? Alrighty then. Okay. In that case, thank you so much for being here. Stay in touch. 30 Days of Cloud. You got this. We are out. All right, guys. Take care.
Hi, I'm Priyanka, and welcome to the module Where Do I Store This Stuff? In this module, you will see how you can take advantage of managed storage and databases for cloud applications. So far in this course, you've learned what GCP is, why you should have a solid platform before beginning a GCP transfer, and how GCP supports the building of apps. In this module, you will learn about storage and database options in GCP. The objective of this module is for you to be able to implement a variety of structured and unstructured storage models. To achieve this goal, you will need to meet the following learning objectives. Discuss the different storage options that exist in the cloud. Differentiate between structured and unstructured storage in the cloud. Compare the role of the different cloud storage options. And explore the use case for relational versus NoSQL storage. You'll also describe leveraging cloud storage as unstructured storage, and explain relational database options in the cloud and describe the NoSQL options in GCP. These are the topics that make up the module. First, you will learn about the different storage options available in the cloud. Then you will see the difference between structured and unstructured storage, and how you can leverage unstructured storage using cloud storage. A hands on lab will allow you to explore a range of activities applicable to cloud storage. You will then review the use case for SQL managed services. Next, you will explore Cloud SQL and then complete another lab where you will import data into Cloud SQL and perform basic data analysis. You will discover how to leverage Cloud Spanner and explore the available NoSQL options. You will then learn how to use Cloud Data Store as a NoSQL document store. You will complete the module with an app development activity that requires you to store app data in Cloud Data Store. And then you will learn how Cloud Bigtable can be leveraged as a NoSQL option. The module will end with a short quiz and a recap of the key learning points covered in the module.